us today, and we heard your amazing background. But maybe start us off with the beginning part of your career in banking and insurance and how you kind of got started out.
Okay. So I attended the University of Tennessee on an engineering scholarship, a full ride, and within the first 12 months, I realized that was not helping me to party much at all. And so I changed that major to fashion merchandising after the first year, and then knew my junior year that I really didn't want to work in retail, and so I gave myself, and I didn't want to keep going to school either, so I gave myself 6 months to graduate, to get a job after graduation, either in a management training program or a sales position. And I was fortunate to be hired by First American Bank in their management training program. So I started out in financial services, and that was an 18-month program. And so I've always been in financial services, and I've been in that field for 38 years. And so I started out in retail.
So we know your early career would go in a lot of directions with that, and I already talked about some of the other things that we want to make sure to highlight in this interview. But I think some things to focus on at the beginning were very early on in your career when you were starting in banking. What were some of the struggles that you experienced?
Well, again, going back to that first job, in that management training program, there were 7 or 8 of us. And we were told that when we finished the program, because the first year was educational banking and money and all that, the last 6 months was a 6-week rotation around all areas of bank: marketing, retail, investments, commercial lending, and we were going to have the ability to decide where we wanted to land. And so that was the value proposition. So that happened for everybody, and when I finally got to investments, I knew that I wanted to work in that field. I wanted to be around the markets and the money and that part of the business. And then when I said, this is what I want to do, the bank said, well, we think that you would be better in retail. So I was the only one out of those people that didn't get a choice. And so my career started off with not getting a choice. And so I started out in retail, and of course, imagine right out of college, I'm now 21. I'm Black, I'm African American, and they put me in an assistant manager in a branch, and the manager there was 40. He was a white male, and he had tried unsuccessfully to get in the management training program for maybe 5 or 6 years. And there were no the Black people, and the average age was 40 or better, and I was 21, and I'm an assistant manager. So I'm walking in with that, not wanting to be there, and we could take the whole time just going through that experience. But at the end of the day, I got the skills. They tried to fire me. People documented on me. I had a mentor that said, I'm like, oh my goodness, these people, I'm like, there's a sheet of paper that says, I went to the bathroom at 5:05. I was on the phone at 10:10. And it was like this whole sheet of documentation. And I just happened to be waiting behind his assistant to ask the question, waiting. She was on the phone. I looked, I'm like, oh, that's me. I think I just did all that. And so I said, you can't even imagine. I'm like, you're documenting on me? And so it was a thing to try to fire me. I had a mentor who was high up in the company, who was a white female, and she said, this is not happening. So what you're going to do is after work at 4 o'clock, you're going to come to my branch. I'm going to teach you what you need to do. I'm going to teach you how to balance the teller window. I'm going to teach you how to open and close the vault. I'm going to teach you how to be a note teller so you can stop what's happening. And so after probably the first 6 weeks after we closed the branch, and I was at Rivergate, I would drive to the Woodland Street branch. She would have people there for me to do. They would open the teller window. I would balance the teller window. I learned operations. And so in 6 weeks, I was ready. And then when I left, I was loved. So I cleaned house. I was a great manager. And at the end of the day, and I'll stop with that, is that at the end of the day, I was over all the people. And so I had control of the raises. I had control of the valuations. And so I had the power. And then when I finished all that and everybody loved me, I'm like, okay, great. So I proved to the bank I'm ready to do something else. And so then I began to post, the guy got fired. My boss he got demoted. He got demoted. All this stuff happened. And I was 22. This is really a hard thing. So at the end of the day, I posted for HR. I posted monthly for jobs all over the bank. And I was so good at what I was doing, they wouldn't let me move. So then I realized I had to do something different if I wanted something different. And then I was recruited to go sell insurance by Prudential. And so again, this is long, but when I got to Prudential, when I was there, and that's where I learned how to sell, because insurance, you can sell insurance, I say this all the time. It's the hardest thing to sell because you've got to convince somebody to buy something that they're only going to benefit, somebody's going to benefit when they die. There's nothing in it for you. There is nothing in it for you, and you don't have a shiny penny. You get nothing. Okay, so if you can do that well. I can sell trash out of a trash can. So I really can, because it's the hardest thing to do, and if you can accomplish that, you've got sales down. But even there, so I always still wanted to be a broker, right? And so Prudential bought Beige when I was there, and I wanted to move, and they said no. So my career has been no's, which is what forced me into having my own company. And so that has been my career. It has been a succession of no's.
Do you think that the mentorship that woman gave you kind of shaped the way that you give back so much
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was pretty powerful.
It was, and she didn't have to do it, and I had no clue. I just knew I was on a sinking ship, and this was not, I don't know what to do. I can't even believe people are doing this, So yes, that was she threw me an anchor. Well, it was more than an anchor, and she took me out of it and put me back in it, and she said, okay, now you're ready, and you call me if you need me. And that was the first serious mentor that I had. Yes.
So you've given us your career background when you were around the time of starting your own firm. Tell us about your family situation at that time.
So the reason that I started my company was this baby there. But when I was at Prudential, and I had figured it out, and I was having a lot of success. And so now I'm probably 25, and so I'm on the path of becoming a top producer. I'm a top producer in the situation. I read books, I go to seminars, I unmercifully hang out with top producers. So I'm on that path. I'm beginning to have success, and then I get pregnant. And so in selling insurance, basically, I was married. I was not happy with that. Rita was really depressed about that. It was an accident. Rita was not happy about that.
But you're happy now. Happy now.
But what happened was that selling insurance, you're really meeting people after work. In their homes, and so I had the affluent market. But I was working mostly when people got from work. So I was working from 5 to 9, 5 to 10, and then I was pregnant. I was like, I can't do this with a young child, and so I had the baby, and then I'm like, okay, so now we need to get another job, and I went. Nobody would hire me because then we didn't have all these HR rules. So I would go in and they would say, so you just had a baby? And I said, yeah, how old is she? Well, she's 3 months. And I'm like, well, come back in a year because we're not hiring anybody because you're going to be sick all the time. And so come back in a year. So
No one actually said that.
Yes,
Wow.
they've said more than that. But there were none. We have all of this rule. Today we have all these rules. There were no rules. And so you could say anything. You could put anything in a letter. I have letters that said, we found somebody better than you, so we're not hiring you. Really? And so there were a lot of lawsuits along the way to get to where we are today with rights. And so nobody would hire me. Then I decided I should just go back to school and start working on my MBA at MTSU, which I did. I wanted to get a job as a waitress because I love food. We ate out a lot. I can serve, and I thought I could make the tips. And so at Red Lobster, they wouldn't let me have a waitress job because they wanted me to go into their restaurant management training program to be a manager, and they made me be a hostess, but I needed the job. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. And they said I didn't have enough experience to be a waitress. I'm like, I have a degree. I had 11 people. I was the branch manager. I'm a loan officer. officer, but I had never served, and said that, so they were gonna groom me to that. So I started an MBA, I worked at night, I took the classes, and then I also, in credential, I had to place my license, so I had a Series 6 then. And so when I found a broker-dealer that would let me place the license or lose it, then I had been trying to get this Series 7 all these years. When I placed my license, to do the transfer was just a box. So do you want to take in these exams? This exam, the 7, the 20, I'm like, and I come on, can I just, man, I can just check this box and I can do it? And because everyone had said no. And they said, well, yeah, you can pay a fee, but you can do it. And so we didn't have any money. I was going on a student loan. So I checked the box. I was taking 16 hours of statistics, management, hard courses because I was doing the underwork to go to do the MBA. And then I checked the box to get the materials. I didn't have anybody in that field. So I checked the box, I paid the money that we didn't have, and I'm like, well, I'll just take the test. And
What's the Series 7?
Series 7, which is the license where you can sell stocks and bonds and mutual funds. It's the broker's license.
So that's what you wanted to do
All
those
those years ago, when
and
they
now
said
all you
no,
had to do
was check a
it
box.
off.
That's right, and pay the check. And I had so much money that I would have a student loan, right? Student loan. And so I checked the box, and I'm like, this is just so exciting. And I was in the middle of the semester, and then the box came. And the box was this big. It just had the books.
For those who can't see, she's making very large.
Big. It was the box, and there was a time frame that I had to take the test. We didn't have money for me. If I failed it, we had no more money. And it was my student loan money, so I really didn't need to lose that money. I needed to pass. And so I'm in the middle of taking 4 exams, driving to MTSU, being a hostess at Red Lobster, and now I'm studying for the Series 7 with no help.
And you have a baby?
And I have a baby. I have that baby. And that baby's like 6 months. And so I had no choice. So we did all that. My husband was supportive. And so I made straight A's on the 4 classes, and I passed the test probably by a couple of points. He was supposed to be able to take me. They said he couldn't be off on Monday, so we took our little rickety car to Atlanta, because that's where I had to take the test. They dropped me off in a cheap hotel, and I had to ride the bus back. And you sit there for 8 hours to take the test, and then you would know. And so I knew I had passed it, and then I got on the bus that night, midnight, and the bus back to Nashville, because he could not come and get me. We only had 1 car. So that is my story of determination. So there you go.
So talk to us a little bit about then being a business owner and what it was like to own your own company.
Well, and were you just confident? Did you say, I can start a business and do that?
No, I wasn't, and because I had worked at Prudential, which was one of the #1 companies, and that's where I had grown up. And I couldn't get a job, as I said, and nobody would hire me at all for anything other than the Red Lobster job. And then my husband was saying, you should really, why don't you start a business? And I'm like, well, we have no money, and nobody's going to buy anything for me. And who's buying for me? I was with Prudential, now it's Rita Mitchell. And he's like, that's what they were buying before. You've identified with the company, but the people bought from you. And so my husband is the one who had the confidence that I could do it. And I didn't really believe it, but I didn't really have a choice. And so, okay, so we'll start the business. And we did. And we did, and we almost lost our house because we couldn't pay the rent. We had bills, all this stuff. And we would do this, and he would come home. He was a coach and a teacher. So he would come home, and he would deal with all the bill collectors, and he said, okay, I'm going to get a drink. I'm going to go upstairs. I will close the door. I will deal with all these people, and you're going to get ready for the next day, because this is all good. You're going to be fantastic. No. It's all good. You're not going to hear any of this crap, and I'm going to deal with it. And so that's what we did. And so in 6 months, I was out of the house. I had retail space. And the business was profitable in 12 months, and I ran that business for 11 and a half years. Yeah.
So how then did you make the transition back into more corporate America type role?
And so in that 11 and a half years, especially last year, I was very successful. I won all kind of awards. I was making great money. But there was something called the Glass-Steagall Act, which was happening as well, which was the thing that made banks and brokerage houses equal. So before there was a clear line of if you were an investment firm, you would sell products, you could do all this. Banks could only do so many things. The Glass-Steagall Act changed everything, where the bank could do the same business. And I was a very small business, and technology was happening at the same time. It was very difficult to clone myself. And so I knew at the end of the day that I could not continue to work with technology advancing and the banks entering the market who had customers, who had distribution. The only thing the banks didn't have was technology, but they had customers. They had distribution. They didn't have great technology. They didn't have any salespeople. And so I just felt that at the end of the day, I was going to eventually have to do something else. And I didn't know when or where, but I knew in 5 years that I would have to make another decision. And then I was fortunate that Edward Jones approached me and said, had I ever thought about doing anything else, and would I consider opening an office for them and running an office for them? And so we negotiated me shutting down my company, and I opened up an office because it was still like being self-employed. I mean, it's a model where you have your own office, you're running things, and you have an assistant, and they give you back office support. But it really is still like being an entrepreneur, and I thought that would work. And so I did that for a couple of years, but I still, at the end of Edward Jones, I still didn't think that was the right model. I really felt I needed to get back to the bank side of the business because they were going to need great salespeople. And when they got that and they had technology, they have customers. They got customers. They just don't know what to do with them as it relates to this side of the business. And so, just forward thinking, I felt I needed to get back to the bank side of the business, and that's what happened.
Did you feel like this time around joining a bank that with your newfound confidence, all this experience you have under your belt, you finally have your licenses, was it a different experience than you had initially?
No. Well, what I told my husband, because he couldn't even believe that I was doing this, after we did all this work and the company was here and we were making money, and he's like, I can't believe you're doing this. I said, I thought you said you'd never go back to corporate environment. And I'm like, I know, but these things are happening, and we talked, and I said, look, and when I made the decision, and it really has been this way, and I said, look, when I go back to corporate America, this will be a freaking piece of cake. And I mean, it will be, because as an entrepreneur, you're responsible, you're turning the lights on, you're paying for everything, you're the janitor, you're this, you're not going to, all of that. So now I go to corporate America where, I've got benefits. They don't know what they're doing. I've already dealt with management at 21. I got this. I got bad stuff. I can do the stuff. I know how to sell. And so there was not a job hard enough in corporate America from where I had come from, and it was a piece of cake. It really was. And so it has been. I mean, it doesn't mean it's easy, but compared to starting a business out of your house with a baby, no money, losing your home, taking a test with no help, the Series 7, and having no experience, knocking on doors when people say no solicitation, you go on in, doing all that, corporate America's a piece of cake.
Especially if you have that mindset, I guess, and all the
And
things.
all day long, I can do this with you. Yes.
And then how did that, you've been very successful in First Tennessee. What was it that kind of propelled you? Was it just that grit? Did they supply the necessary tools? Like, what really made you successful? And I think one of the things that you've done is bring people along, because you've made a wake, right? Like, and you bring people along. How has that kind of propelled you and helped you to help people come behind you?
Okay, so here's my First Tennessee story. And it's the same story. It really is the same story, and that's why I'm equipped. So I was a top producer because, like I said, I can sell trash out of a trash can. I can do that. I mean, I could go to anybody's business, and you tell me your product, and if I believe I can sell it, I can do that. I have the skill. So I was a top producer at First Tennessee, the #1 producer, and right out the gate, I've gone to the trip every year, and I had managers that they weren't great. And they were going to make another change. And I've always thought, why are you not asking me, do I want to manage? I mean, that's okay. I don't really want to manage because I like the freedom and I like making the money. And I don't really want to do it, but I've always thought, but you should be asking me. I mean, why aren't you asking me, do I want to do it? I have all the licenses. I have 24 is the managing broker because I have my business. And I have all this stuff. And so I have all this experience and I have all the success. And so why aren't you asking me? And so I had the third manager they were gonna hire somebody else, and he brought me into the office and he said, and he had some Kleenex on his desk, and he said, I really some bad news, and I'm gonna take another job in the bank. He said, but I've already made arrangements. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to, whoever you bring in here, they're gonna leave you alone. You're not gonna, we're not gonna mess with you. You can do whatever you want. We don't want you to leave. And those are the conversations. And I said, okay, I'm not gonna have another bad manager. And he was my manager. And I and so I said, so do you know who you're gonna hire? No, we don't. I said, so do you have a plan? No, we don't. And I'm like, okay, so I'm just asking. This was a Friday. I said, so what am I, chicken feed? So you don't have a plan, and you don't have a person, and you know you're gonna hire somebody, and you don't even consider thinking that I might want to do this? You don't even ask me? And he said, do you want to do it? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But you should be asking me if I want to, and you are not.
I didn't know this was going to turn into a comedy.
It was. And this is the truth. And then he said, well, would you consider being interim? And the people around me, for the most part, were lazy, and they weren't working. Having done the work, and I'm like, and I was just, you can see, if you're a top producer, you can pretty much say what you want to say.
I told y'all this would not be sugar.
No, it's not. And so he asked me, well, would you consider being interim until we find somebody? And I just said this. I said, you know what? I would consider being interim because I could really enjoy whipping these people into shape and cleaning house so that when you finally got the freaking manager, that the people around me will be working. That might be fun for me. I might consider that. And I walked out. It was Friday, and I went home and told my husband, I said, this is just stupid. And so, Monday morning, when I walked in at 8 o'clock, my manager, my old manager, the new president was there, and they were waiting for me, and they said they want to talk to me, and they pulled me in the office, and they said, and the new president said, so, I've been told that you've agreed to be the interim manager. I was like, I didn't agree to that. So it turned out, and so then I did agree to do interim, and then I thought in my trajectory of my career, it wasn't something I really wanted to do now, but for 3 to 5 years I might, and if I did, I wanted to stay with First Tennessee, so it was an opportunity that came before me, and I did it because I'm always 3 to 5 years ahead of time. So I agreed to be interim. After 30 days, he said, okay, if you want this job, you need to raise your hand because I'm getting ready to find somebody. And I'm like, what's the time frame? 30 days. He said, you have 30 days to make the decision. If you want it, do it. Otherwise, I'm going to find somebody. And then I said, 30 days, I'll do it. And so that was 11 years ago, and that's how I got to be the manager. But they did not ask me. I'm like, really? Okay, great. So that's how I hear.
Well, and I know we're all laughing about this, but one of the things that I do really admire about Rita, and I just try to soak it up, is this confidence that she has. And for me, I ask her all the time, like, were you just born? Did you come out of the womb with this mindset? Because for me, these are a lot of the things I struggle with, trying to voice, I deserve a promotion and a raise. Those are scary things for me to ask. And I know we touched a little bit on that your husband was very supportive of you, but how do you think you kind of came, I know one of the phrases you use is knowing your worth. How do you think you came to know your worth like you do today?
I thought about that on the way over here. So I think there's a trajectory. My father, and I'm from Mississippi, my dad grew up on a dirt floor. His mother left, the 5 kids, he was the oldest, left with his dad. And then he had a sister who, she was beautiful, but she was really dependent on men and had a really hard life. And so there are 2 things my dad was going to do. He was going to stay married, and he was not having any girls that could take care of themselves. And so I was raised like a boy. I really was. And so there were, so that began the confidence that it was just me. So that started that. And then my husband, who has always been there, when he said I could do that company, and and all the stuff happens, when you have success, one little thing at a time, it builds all that confidence. And I've always been smart, so I know it's smart. So then when we did the company and all that worked, and it's like, we talked about this, to take a test by yourself that allows you to tell people the best in their lives, and you don't really know what you're talking about. And so, and then you talk to people like you know what you're talking about, and then they describe their circumstance, and you go back home and I got a book out, and I'm like, this sounds like I should sell a zero coupon line. That's what I'm gonna do. And then I would read all that, and then I would come back and say, so I've thought about it. And this is why I'm gonna recommend that you buy a zero coupon bond, and this is why, and all this is coming out of this book. And so when people buy that stuff, and you know you build a business that way, so that's a level of confidence as well. And then as you success breeds success. And so I think as you win and as you have success, that also creates confidence. And then, you know, you get to a point where you don't need anybody else to reinforce that. I don't need you to tell me that you think I'm great or good or whatever, because I'm doubling down on Rita, because Rita is who's driving all this, and Rita's the one that's got to get up and do X, Y, Z. And when you decide you don't want me anymore, Rita's still got to be the one to go make something else happen. So I think over the years, then the confidence transfers from other successful people telling you about success to you knowing that you own your own success. And so that is where that confidence comes from. It's from the doing of it, and it's from the winning in it, and the getting up and continuing to win when it appears that you don't have options. So I think that you grow into that.
Yeah. Where do you think that you've seen so many women, because you've led for a long time, you've had a lot of people that you've personally mentored and personally managed. What are some of the struggles that you've seen some young women kind of go through that you've helped them guide?
You know,
Like, don't look at me over here.
I'm talking about something.
you know, a lot of it is the same confidence question. So a lot of it is the confidence to believe that you have enough, that you're smart enough, you have enough tenacity. It does require work. I mean, so also to be successful requires a discipline of the work and the being better at your craft, the work of getting better and being the best. So you have to put those two things together. It's like baking a cake. It's not going to rise if there's not baking soda or yeast. The bread is not. So there's a formula that has to be there for all this to work. But what I find with young women is that lack of confidence and understanding that there is a formula to success, and once you have that, it's yours, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I find, and which was a characteristic with me as well, is that we as women need permission, right? And we want to be like, we need to know everything. I mean, I've said no to things because I didn't think that I was really ready. I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think, you know, I don't have an MBA, and I feel like I'm an imposter. And if I take this, and then they ask me if I'm here, and the people are gonna know I really don't know. And you know what men do? They just say, I'll do it. I mean, can you like move that mountain? Yeah, I can. I have a clue. I'm like, no, I don't think I really, no, I don't have I can't, no. And so we as women, we don't take opportunities that are in front of us, because a lot of those opportunities you do have to raise your hand. I mean, that's the only reason I'm sitting here. I mean, you know, even to get the pay equity, I mean, I had to bring in my W-2s and say, okay, here's the deal. I'm not going to continue to work like this. I'm going to either sell, I'm going to teach the people to sell, and you can decide. This is how much money I made, and you can decide which pocket you want to take it out of. But I mean, there's a confidence of your own value and knowing, like I said, knowing that you are enough, and you don't have to know everything to say yes, because you're smart enough, smarter than a lot of the people, and you can figure it out. And I think men are taught to believe that. I mean, that's just part of who they are. Like my husband thought, why don't you start a company? I'm like, what are you talking about? And so but a man would do this. It's like, do you want to start a company? Yeah. Do you know anything? No. I'm like, do you want to start a company? No. Do you know anything? Yeah, no, what? Well, why?
so this whole barrier is a right. It's a journey of getting right there, their confidence, and I don't want to say exactly like it's a man, but it is that place of thought that yes, I'm enough to do whatever you're talking about doing. It's something I want to do.
And you have the capacity to figure it out.
I have the capacity to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
So talk to us about this next phase of your career and the evolution of that,
Okay.
and the book, going on the speaker circuit,
Right.
and particularly, how do you think your situation, whether emotionally, financially, with your family, is different now than it was when you started your own firm back, a long time ago?
Right. So, and I'm going to read this. This is my thing on what the book is. And so let me begin with what's different, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing. So I've talked about the company that I started, which I started because we didn't have a job. I didn't have a job, and we have a mortgage. We have a baby. Nobody will hire me. We don't have money for me to hang out and go to school, kinda. And so, when you finally make that decision, it's a financial decision. So I've got to make money, and I've got to make money fast, because now I am the creator of my income. So today, my business is not starting out of desperation. So I don't have to make money like that. I like to make money, and I'm going to make money because that's what I do. I mean, that's what I do as a financial advisor. I know how to make money, just like I know how to sell stuff. So whatever I do, I'm going to end up making money, and I know that, again, we're going back to that core confidence. But I'm not making a 3-year business plan, and in year 1, I'm going to make this, and I got to sell so many widgets to do Y, and in 5 years, I plan on doing this. This company that I'm doing, what I'm going to do now, is purely my passion and pleasure around empowering women. And so the book that is finished, we're going to re-edit, and Brittany, my daughter, is the brand marketing person and the ninja slave driver. A little ninja. And so we've got, but it's finished, and it's around success, character, success, and leadership, because I think those things come in that order. So first there's character, and then when you have character, the work, all that stuff, then you'll have success. And when you have success, you naturally lead, because people want to be like you, and they want to follow you, and they want to know what you want to know. So the book is about that, and it's a book that you can read in an hour, because I wanted it to be something like Hulu My Cheese. You can take it on the plane, you could read it, you could get off, and then you would be changed, you would be enlightened. It would be something you'd give to a high school student. And so that's the intent, and everything else is around empowering women. But now it's not about how much money I make, it's about how many people I impact. And can I, from my experiences, help someone jump 20 spaces to the next thing without having 20 lashes on the back? And so I want to share what I've learned, because I really believe that there's a desert, if you will, for women, young women, in terms of mentors, knowledge from seasoned people. When I was growing up, with cable was the place, and I helped charter the National Association of Women Business Owners. There wasn't, we had people, so there were organizations where you would network with people, and you would see people that you were really successful women, executives that you could meet, you could pick their brains, you could come to a session, you could come to a conference, and they would be there, and you would learn. And I think there's a desert for that. And even my daughter, who's has an international MBA, has lived abroad, is fluent in another language, still, we talk every day as she goes on her corporate career, and as she tells me, I don't know what it is, but it's like, I put on some slippers, you tell me to run around in a circle 3 times, jump up and down, open my eyes and say this, and then this magic happens because it happens. And that comes from seasoned people who are experienced in a corporate environment. And so I want to be able to empower people, and women especially, young women, to give them the knowledge and make a place of where women come together and they can get information from other women, people that are professional, that are successful. Well, because everybody's on this telephone. I mean, everybody's on the phone, Googling. I mean, nobody's really talking hardly to people. You don't have access because there are not places to have access, kind of. So that's the premise of the whole thing.
Is there any, I know you mentioned maybe
I do,
wanted to
I do.
read the overview.
I
so
do,
you
I
also
do.
want to mention
Yeah,
it.
I do want to read this because this is really good. So this is the book. Who is the audience? And this is, I'm going to read this because this is our sheet on the book. So it's a handbook for women who want control of their lives and power over their destiny. These women are early in their careers, 25 to 40 years old, who are highly intelligent, incredibly skilled, multi-talented, hardworking in a corporate environment. These women are also ambitious and self-motivated. Ellen, Leah. They have a strong desire to do good in the world and do well for themselves and for their families financially. However, despite all of their talents and efforts, these women still find themselves held back from promotions and other opportunities. These women are actively seeking guidance from women and men in their industry who have acquired the success, power, and decision-making rights that they so desire. These women need an unfiltered tap into the wisdom, resilience, and strategic prowess of senior women leaders that have already fought the battles that they are currently fighting. These senior leaders have mastered corporate politics and are advanced in corporate strategy and corporate combat. This handbook gives women access to an advanced level of understanding and career guidance, whether or not they have direct access to senior leaders in their industry. And so that's what I'm going to do, and that's what that book is about.
She doesn't have a copyright on that, and we're going to take that wording and put it on the Her Story of Success podcast website as well. So that's kind of a very similar thing to what we're trying to do as well.
And you guys are doing great.
So tell us about the message, own your power, which is kind of the phrase that you've come up with related to your book and your website and your newsletter. What does that mean to you, and what messages are you trying to portray in that to other women?
So there's a chapter in my book, and if you go to Rita Mitchell TEDx, you can see my TED Talk, which is Own Your Power. And I had an experience pretty early in my career where I had done all this volunteer work for a nonprofit, and at the end of the day, I had given away. I mean, I made 5 big initiatives, and they really took off. And the director, when they started to take off, I mean, she wanted to take credit for everything. And I mean, I'll just give you one example. I wrote a newspaper, and I wrote everything. I named it. It was my idea. And then when we did it, we had CEOs sending her notes saying how great it was. And so she came to me and said, well, I want to be the editor of this newspaper. And I'm like, well, you didn't write anything. She says, but I'm the CEO. I said, so we could be co-editors. She said, no, I don't want to be you can be a contributing writer. And I'm like, how do you be a contributing writer? I'm writing the paper. And so at the end of the day, it was a really awful experience for me. And I had to walk away. I was on the board. I had to walk away from the board. I had to make a decision whether I was going to fight all this stuff or walk away. And it was probably, 30 years ago. And then I had a senior woman, and in my book, it's a nice thing, but it wasn't. It was like a nana boo-boo thing. And so after it was over with, she came and said, okay, so let me give you some advice. So I'm just saying that you should never come into a party without an agenda. Because basically, I was just trying to do good. I was thinking if I did all this, this would help my company. And so I didn't really have an agenda. I mean, I was like, I didn't have an agenda. She says, but if you don't have an agenda, then somebody else is going to take your stuff and it'll be on their agenda. And it was really enlightening, and I stopped to think about that. I said, this is really true. And so I will never put myself in a position where I don't have a personal agenda. And she said I always needed to have one if I was going to work, volunteer, do whatever that is, that I needed to have a personal agenda when I walked in there, because if I didn't have one, I was going to be serving somebody else's. And so as I thought about that and as I wrote the book, so owning your power. So what is your power? Your power is your gifts, your talent, your brand, your network, your skills, your knowledge, and that belongs to you, right? That's what, all of that belongs to me. This 38 years of work, all of that belongs to me. So then it is my decision if I'm going to allow you to use that or share that with you. That doesn't belong to you. That's my stuff. So when you own that, then you're in a seat of negotiation. You're in a seat of power because you're making the decisions about how you allow people to access what your blessings are, what your God-given talents are, what your experience are, versus going along and being mindless and not having a clue, and before you know it, the music's stopping and you don't have a job because you weren't even aware of what was happening. So owning your power is understanding that whatever your gifts are, they have value. Everybody has value. This is on TED Talk. You can be homeless because everybody's a person of value in the universe, and everybody has an experience that has value in and of itself. So even a homeless person, anybody that you might think is not successful, can share their experiences in a way that has value to the world. So everybody has value, but you have to own that value, and you have to also own that it belongs to you, which means you're making decisions about how you are allowing that to be used and shared and gifted to people and to the world. So that's what I feel about that.
Beautiful.
So obviously working in the financial services industry, being an advisor for a long time, financial independence is something that's important to you.
Absolutely.
Can I talk about how that's played a role and why you think that that's something that women really should focus on and make a priority for themselves?
Well, frankly, that's the only reason that I can decide to do early retirement with First Tennessee. So my retirement, I turned 15 year. I have 15-year anniversary July 8th. We used to do a pension. We don't do it anymore. I'm still part of the pension. In 15 years, I turned 60 in October. In 15 years, I can get a pension. All of my stuff vests because of all of that, and I know all of this because I'm a financial advisor. And if I did, and I have a planner myself. So as women, and First Tennessee, and I'll put a plug in for the bank, we also have a women's initiative. And the women's initiative is saying that we put a stake in the ground that we want to be the financial provider of choice for women, because we understand that women are making most of the consumer decisions. Women are going to live longer than men, which means we're going to be sitting in the chair at the end of the day, and the wealth that's going to be transferred to women, and we're creating businesses faster than that. So women are going to be those people, but women are not going to have that if they don't understand what they need to do with their finances. And even whatever you're going to do, you want to me, success is being able to make the choices, the life choices of how you want to live at the end of the day. And you cannot do that without having a financial, either resources, assets. You cannot choose, you cannot make the choice that I'm making if you have not done the financial planning for yourself. And so if you have dreams and goals and desires, and you're going to be the last one standing, you want to have enough money to make the choices for yourself. And so that's why it's important, and that's why I wanted to be in the field when I was at the bank. When the first place that I landed, when I got to that's where I wanted to be, because it's important. And we think that we got all this time, and the time goes pretty fast.
I actually want to ask a question on that. I was with my own mastermind women's group, and we're all 30s, pretty successful, and that question came up, like, well, when should we get a financial planner? Because if we're not making $1 million yet, then does anyone want to work with us? So for those of the folks listening, when should a young woman reach out to a financial planner to even start that discussion?
I think you can do, if it's a fee-based planner, I think you do it as soon as you can. Because they're not going to charge you you're not going to be charged a lot for something. You don't have a lot of assets. But what planning does is make you forward thinking. So you think about this before you have money. And so if you are aware that you need to save, I don't know, maybe it's 10% of whatever you make before you have a job, and then you take 10% before you have the first check, you never really made that money. If you know that you should take all the money off the table in 401k and make sure you're getting all the matching dollars. So how are you going to find that out before, in the early years when you now have all of this time? And that's how people make money, is compounding interest. So, you know, the rule of 72. So you know, at 7%, my money's gonna double every 10 years. I mean, so you gotta have time to do that, and to do that well, you need to be engaged in a conversation or studying yourself. So what are the things I need to do before I have money?
Right.
You wanna do that at the little
So if
money.
they're right out of college, they should do that.
And the planner will probably say, look, you don't have anything, but let's just meet once a year. So, you know, and there are things on, there are global planning, there's things on the internet, but you should be about saving, investing, and the knowledge of that before you have money, so that you are equipped when you begin to have money, and you're taking advantage of the gap of time between starting work and retirement. And you start saving a little bit of money here, that money's gonna have all this time to be big money, versus here trying to accelerate whatever you're doing at the end of your financial path.
I just want to thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with all of us today. But I grew to know you being the junior board of the YWCA, and I've just admired you for so many years, and it's just an honor to get to talk to you and hear more of your story and share it with our audience. So we just have a few more questions.
Okay.
And, I would love to know what your definition of success is today, and how that changed from when you first started in your career.
So, and I thought about that. My definition of success is the same. So my definition of success is, first there's God, and then there's family, and then there's work and financial success. And so that has always been what success looks like to me. Now, all of those things, you expound what you understand, and on what we talked about, success in the corporate world, obviously you get better at that. I mean, you get better at that. But success to me is in that order. And so that has always been, again, you go back to what is my personal agenda, what is my sorter. That's always been my sorter. And that's why I'm married 38 years, and that's why my child is sitting here, who's my best friend. And then the work is important, but it's last.
Well, and just one more quick question before we wrap up. If people want to learn more about owning your power and all this advice, where can they find you on social media? How do they subscribe to your newsletter?
Okay.
You can refer to your notes.
So I'm ready. This is like, I'm ready. So,
Brittany's very proud.
Brittany's very proud. I'm like, I do not know this. And so, on my website, you can go to ritamitchelloip.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter, and so we're going to publish another one here. And my handle on Instagram, notice that word. My handle is at @RitaMitchell_OIP. And so we're posting on Instagram, and the book, we're gonna launch the book, probably a soft launch before July 8th, but then I'm gonna have a hard launch either the middle, end of July, August, and so the book will be out then. So we got a few editing, and we've just decided I need to do that in July. So
Awesome. I think we have found one area where you don't have total confidence, and that is social. You're not totally correct.
That would be correct. I cannot get this thing. I'm like, oh my goodness. But yes, it's a different language. So,
Great. Well, everyone go check out all the good places that Rita just mentioned, and thank you so much for all of your wisdom today. And
thank you for
excited
that.
to share. Couple other things real quick before we leave.
Yes, do not forget Monday, like this coming Monday, we officially launch our podcast. So go on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and download Her Story of Success podcast. same type of thing, will be with Jessica Harcock, and it will be June 12th. So we'll be sending you an email about that. And check us out on Instagram, and our website handle of all of that is herstoryofsuccess.com.
All right, thanks for coming.